Ladies and gentlemen, there was a time when you would have given the world for her attention. You waited by the phone, you reread old texts, you wondered what went wrong. The silence cut deeper than any words ever could. But now she comes back, and you're no longer interested. Emotional growth is often born from the hardest moments, the kind that strip you down to your core and force you to face parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. When she walked away, something inside you shattered. You felt confusion, heartbreak, and that unbearable sense of emptiness that only someone's absence can bring. You questioned everything: your worth, your actions, your identity. The silence was louder than any argument could have been, and in that silence, the healing began. Not all at once, but slowly, like a sunrise creeping over the edge of a dark horizon. You started sitting with the pain, instead of running from it. You stopped trying to numb it with distractions or fill it with temporary people. Instead, you let yourself feel. You allowed the tears, the anger, the loneliness. You wrote late-night thoughts in your journal, took walks with no destination, listened to sad music until it didn't hurt anymore. You stopped reaching out, not out of pride, but because you finally understood that someone who truly cares doesn't put you in a position to question your value. As time passed, the ache didn't vanish. It transformed. What used to feel like abandonment became space for rediscovery. You remembered passions you'd neglected, friendships you'd put on hold, dreams you'd shelved to accommodate someone else's priorities. You started to prioritize yourself. You found joy in simple things, making your own breakfast, choosing your own music, laughing at your own jokes. You began to enjoy your own company, realizing that loneliness isn't the absence of someone else, it's the absence of self-connection. The hardest part wasn't letting her go. It was letting go of the version of yourself that believed you weren't enough without her. That part of you clung to the past, thinking love meant sacrifice, even when it was one-sided. But as you grew emotionally, you began to understand that love shouldn't feel like chasing approval. It shouldn't drain you or make you shrink to be accepted. Love should feel like freedom, not dependency. You looked in the mirror one day and didn't recognize the person staring back. Not because you were broken, but because you were becoming whole. The desperation had faded. The need for answers, closure, or apologies no longer consumed you. You weren't angry, you just didn't care the same way anymore. And that wasn't indifference born from bitterness, it was strength born from growth. Then, almost unexpectedly, she returned. Whether it was a message, a call, or just showing up in your life again, she came back. But instead of excitement, all you felt was stillness. Not coldness, not hate, just calm. You listened, maybe even smiled. But deep inside, you knew she was talking to a version of you that no longer existed. You no longer needed her to feel whole. The love you spent so long searching for had been within you all along. Emotional growth didn't just teach you how to move on. It taught you how to value yourself without needing someone else to confirm it. You didn't reject her out of revenge. You just didn't have room for her in the life you'd built. A life finally centered around self-worth, not longing. You used to think healing would be loud. A declaration, a triumph. But in reality, it was quiet. It was choosing not to reply, choosing peace over drama, choosing yourself every single time. And when she came back, it wasn't a victory or a loss. It was just another moment. Because the real win was never about her returning. It was about you finding your way back to yourself. Time has a way of revealing what the heart tries so hard to hide. In the beginning, it feels like a curse. The days stretch endlessly, each hour heavier than the last. You check your phone too often, scroll through old messages, replay every moment that led to the end. The nights are the worst, quiet, long, and full of memories that refuse to fade. You think the pain will last forever, that the ache in your chest is permanent. But slowly, without even realizing it, time begins its quiet work. At first, it feels like nothing is changing. You still miss her. You still wonder what she's doing, if she thinks of you. But one day you wake up and realize you didn't dream about her. You made it through the day without checking her social media. You laughed at something without immediately feeling guilty for being happy. These tiny shifts don't feel like progress, but they are. Time doesn't ask for permission. It just moves. And with it, so do you. What time does best is give you distance. Not just from her, but from who you were when she left. That version of you. The one who begged for clarity, who waited for a message, who would have dropped everything just to hear a voice again. That person begins to fade. Not because he was weak, but because he was in pain. And pain, when met with time, becomes wisdom. The hours you once spent wondering where she went or why she changed eventually become hours spent doing other things. You begin to rebuild your focus. You dive into work, into hobbies, into relationships that make you feel seen again. You start to put yourself first, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started remembering how much you matter. And time, gentle, unrelenting time, keeps moving forward, carrying you further away from the moment you thought you'd never survive. Time also changes the way you remember. What used to feel like perfect memories slowly lose their grip. You start to see the cracks, the moments you ignored, the things you excused, the signs that you weren't truly happy but didn't want to admit it. The pedestal you put her on begins to crumble, not because you've become cold, but because clarity always arrives when the emotions settle. Time strips away the illusion and reveals the truth you were too hurt to see. And eventually the day comes when she reaches out. Maybe it's a message that says she's been thinking about you. Maybe she wants to catch up. Maybe she just wants to see how you are. A part of you remembers how much you longed for this. But when it actually happens, something is different. You read her words and they don't hit the same. Your heart doesn't race. There's no urgency, no hope disguised as curiosity. Just calm, just quiet understanding. You've changed, and it wasn't revenge or distraction or even effort. It was just time. Time didn't erase what happened. It didn't pretend the pain wasn't real. It simply showed you that healing isn't loud or dramatic. It's slow, often invisible, but always certain. One day at a time, one breath at a time. Time gave you back to yourself. And when she came back, expecting the same version of you she left behind, she was met with someone new, someone whole. Because the power of time isn't in how it helps you forget. It's in how it teaches you to remember with clarity, to grow with grace, and to finally truly let go. Self-worth isn't something someone can give you, and it's definitely not something someone can take away. But when you've been broken, abandoned, or made to feel like you weren't enough, it's easy to forget that truth. You start measuring your value through someone else's eyes, how much attention they give you, how quickly they reply, whether they choose you or not. You begin to believe that their silence means you're unlovable, their departure means you failed, and their return somehow validates your worth again. But that's the trap. Self-worth that depends on another person's presence is never real. It's borrowed confidence, and when they leave, they take it with them. In the beginning, you probably didn't even notice how much of yourself you gave away. You adjusted your words, your boundaries, even your dreams just to keep her close. You prioritized her happiness over your own peace, thinking that sacrifice was a sign of love. You tolerated things that made you question your value, excused behavior that hurt you, just to avoid the feeling of being unwanted. You convinced yourself that if you just tried harder, loved better, or changed a little more, she'd finally see your worth. But the painful truth is, no one will ever see your value clearly if you don't see it first. And eventually something changes. Maybe it's not one big moment, but a collection of small ones. You get tired of feeling like you're not enough. You get tired of waiting for someone else to decide you matter. You begin to look at yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with honesty. You start recognizing the energy you bring to a room, the way you listen, the way you love, the way you show up. You realize that anyone who overlooks that isn't rejecting you. They're revealing that they're not capable of appreciating what you offer. Self-worth begins when you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. It's when you stop interpreting rejection as a reflection of your inadequacy and start seeing it as redirection towards something better. It's when you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, when you can enjoy your own company without needing validation. It's when you can look in the mirror, not searching for flaws to fix, but recognizing a person who is already whole, someone who has endured heartbreak but didn't let it destroy their heart. The moment she comes back is powerful, but not because she returned. It's powerful because you no longer need her to. The person you've become doesn't seek comfort in old chapters. You don't feel the urge to prove anything anymore. Her return doesn't ignite hope. It reveals growth. You can speak with kindness, listen with patience, and still know you're not going backward. Not because you're trying to win, but because you've already won. You reclaimed yourself. That's the thing about self-worth. It doesn't make you cold. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means you care about yourself enough not to settle for less than you deserve. You've learned to walk away from things that threaten your peace. You've learned that being wanted and being valued are not the same thing. You've learned that love should never come at the cost of losing yourself. So when she comes back, you don't react with bitterness or ego. You just see things for what they are. You're not interested in revisiting what once was, not because you haven't healed, but because you have. You know what you bring to the table. And when you finally know your worth, you stop entertaining people who don't. Bitterness is easy. It shows up quickly after heartbreak, fueled by unanswered questions and lingering pain. It tells you that you were wronged, that they never cared, that you should have seen it coming. It convinces you to hold on to anger like armor, to protect yourself, to make sense of the hurt, to feel powerful when you otherwise feel small. Bitterness feeds your ego while quietly draining your soul, but peace, that's something else entirely. Peace takes strength, it's quiet, patient, and often misunderstood, and it's what you choose when you're no longer interested in reliving what broke you. There was a time when you probably wanted to see her suffer the way you did. You imagined scenarios where she regretted leaving, where she missed you, where she came back just to be turned away. You might have replayed those daydreams 100 times, thinking they'd bring closure. But over time, you realized they only kept you stuck. Revenge fantasies never healed anyone. They only distract you from the deeper work, facing yourself, accepting the past, and letting go. Peace started showing up in small moments. Maybe you stopped checking her social media one day, not because you forced yourself to, but because you simply didn't care anymore. Maybe you saw her name pop up and didn't feel your heart race. Maybe you passed by places that used to feel haunted and felt nothing at all. That nothingness, that stillness, that's peace. It's not loud or triumphant. It doesn't announce itself. It just lives in the space where pain used to be. Choosing peace over bitterness means choosing your future over your past. It means no longer giving energy to someone who no longer holds space in your life. It's recognizing that your healing doesn't depend on an apology, an explanation, or even a goodbye. You realize that closure was never something they could give you. It was something you had to give yourself. Bitterness will tell you that letting go means they win, but peace tells you that letting go means you're free. Free from the weight of resentment. Free from the narrative that you were a victim. Free from defining your worth by someone else's inability to love you the right way. Peace allows you to look back without anger, to remember without pain, and to move forward without baggage. When she comes back, as they often do, it's tempting to want to prove a point, to show her what she lost, to flex your glow up, to make her feel what you once felt. But peace doesn't need to prove anything. Peace doesn't care who notices or who regrets. Peace just lives in your body like a quiet confidence. It's in your tone, your posture, your silence. It's in your ability to smile, speak kindly, and still walk away with no desire to reopen old wounds. You don't hate her. You don't wish her harm. You simply wish her well, from a distance. Not out of pride, but out of self-respect. You've spent too much time rebuilding yourself to go back to what once broke you. You're no longer trying to balance the scales or make things even. You're not waiting for karma or hoping for closure. You've made peace with the fact that not everyone who walks into your life is meant to stay. And that's okay. Because real strength isn't holding on. It's letting go without bitterness. It's standing tall, not because you won, but because you healed. And when she returns, expecting the same version of you she left behind, she won't find anger. She'll find grace. And that's what peace really is. Grace you give yourself after everything you've been through. True strength doesn't always look the way people expect it to. It's not always loud, not always seen, and it rarely demands attention. In fact, true strength often shows itself in the quietest of moments, the moments where you choose grace over revenge, silence over screaming, and growth over staying stuck in the same cycle. When your heart has been broken, when someone walks away from you without explanation, when you feel like you are never enough, true strength is what gets you through without losing who you are. It's easy to believe that strength is about proving something, that if you act like you don't care, if you show her what she missed out on, if you become colder and harder, then you've won. But that's not strength. That's a mask. Strength isn't about pretending not to feel. It's about facing your emotions fully and not letting them control you. It's about standing in the middle of your pain and choosing not to let it define your worth. True strength is choosing not to send the angry text you drafted. It's choosing not to expose the things she said to you in confidence. It's refusing to compete with whoever came after you. It's not about who moves on faster or who seems happier. It's about who can look themselves in the mirror and feel proud of who they are, regardless of who stayed or who left. Strength means being able to sit with the silence she left behind and not fill it with noise just to feel okay. You didn't beg her to come back. You didn't chase after someone who didn't value you. You gave what you had. You showed up with love, and when it wasn't returned, you walked away with dignity. That's strength, because it takes strength to care deeply in a world that tells you caring is weakness. It takes strength to stay soft in your heart when it would be easier to become cold and detached. It takes strength to keep believing in love even after it let you down. When she returns and she sees that you're different, not bitter, not angry, just changed, that's when she realizes what she walked away from. But true strength isn't even found in that moment. It's not about being chosen again. It's not about finally hearing the words you once longed for. It's in your calm response. It's in how little you now need the validation that once felt so important. It's in knowing that you could go back, but choosing not to. Not out of pride, but because you finally understand your value. You don't need her to acknowledge the pain she caused. You don't need her to admit she made a mistake. You've already done the hard part. You healed without the apology. You grew without the support. You rebuilt your sense of self from the ground up. That's what makes you strong, because strength isn't born from never being hurt. It's born from surviving what was meant to break you and still choosing to be better, not bitter. Real strength is quiet. It's not interested in being seen or applauded. It shows up in your peace, in how you carry yourself, in how you treat others, even the ones who didn't treat you right. It's being able to say, I deserved more, and then walking away, not with resentment, but with respect for yourself. True strength is loving yourself enough to let go of anything that no longer serves you, and never looking back. Closure is something we all think we need after the end of a relationship. We wait for that one final conversation, the honest explanation, the apology that makes sense of everything. We imagine that if they could just tell us why they left, why they changed, or why they stopped loving us, we'd be able to move on. But that moment rarely comes. More often than not, they leave quietly or messily or with a story that never adds up, and you're left holding questions that echo louder than any goodbye. That's when you learn the hardest truth of all. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from within. At first, you resist that idea. You want answers. You feel like you deserve them. You go over the relationship in your mind, looking for signs you missed, wondering if you could have done something differently. You try to make sense of their silence, their distance, the way they disappeared emotionally, long before they walked away physically. But the more you chase those answers, the more lost you feel. Because closure isn't found in what they say. It's found in how you choose to interpret the silence. Closure begins the moment you stop waiting for someone else to give it to you. It begins when you realize that no explanation will ever fully heal the wound they left behind. Even if they came back and gave you every answer you wanted, it wouldn't erase the nights you spent hurting. It wouldn't fix the way they made you feel like you weren't enough. Closure isn't about tying up loose ends with them. It's about making peace with the fact that some endings will never make sense. You start creating your own closure by shifting the focus from them to you. You stop asking why they left and start asking what you've learned. You stop needing to understand their choices and start understanding your patterns, what you tolerated, what you ignored, and what you truly need in the future. You begin to accept that people sometimes walk away, not because you're unlovable, but because they weren't capable of loving you in the way you deserved. And that realization has nothing to do with blame and everything to do with growth. Closure is reclaiming your narrative. It's deciding that their absence doesn't define your value. It's realizing that you can heal without their help and forgive without hearing I'm sorry. It's understanding that peace isn't found in someone else's words. It's found in your ability to let go. You stop replaying the past and start writing the future. You stop needing the door to be closed by them and learn how to close it yourself with grace, with strength, and with love for the person you're becoming. When they come back or try to explain, you might finally get the conversation you thought you needed, but by then you'll realize you don't. You've already moved forward. You've already healed in the silence. You've already created the ending that honors your journey. And that's the beauty of finding closure within. It's not about waiting for them. It's about choosing yourself over and over until the past no longer controls you. The freedom you feel doesn't come from what they say. It comes from the moment you decide you don't need to hear it anymore. Closure isn't something you're given. It's something you choose. It's not about getting answers. It's about finding peace with the ones you'll never get. And once you realize that, no one, not even the person who hurt you, has power over your healing again.